Right, to expand on this, we're joined by Kayakazi Magudumana, who's the IEC Provincial Electoral Officer. Very good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time. Some voting stations in the Eastern Cape were closed in the face of the protests. Talk us through some of the challenges you encountered.
Good evening, Paul, and thank you very much for having us. Yes, we had a very bad start. On our first day of social votes this morning, we woke up to disruptions around the OR Tambo Municipality. And Nyandeni Municipality, King Sabata Municipality, Amahlati, Adelaide, and Port St. John's. The bulk of these voting stations were in KSD, where we ended up with 302 voting stations not operating today, and with 81 voting stations in Port St. John's. We are confirming to the voters that we indeed be opening stations tomorrow. We have been promised that whatever disruptions that was happening today will not be tolerated tomorrow. There is additional capacity on the side of the security forces to ensure that there is law and order in those municipalities. And we are indeed hoping for a better day tomorrow.
Yeah. Are you confident that the SANDF being roped in will indeed safeguard the election process?
I am confident because at least the SAPS, they did try their best today. So if there are additional facilities or additional resources rather deployed to that region, I am confident that at least tomorrow we'll be able to operate and not have disruptions as we had today.
It's also been reported that some voting stations failed to open because of a lack of stationery, ballot papers and envelopes. Are you aware of this? Because if that's indeed the case, that's a poor reflection on planning, don't you think?
I am not aware of any of the voting stations running out of ballot papers. We are aware of voting stations where presiding officers did not make use of the double envelope system in voting stations. And we are dealing with those presiding officers because it was very clear that we cannot have a situation where the double envelope system is not used, whether it is at the voting station or it's with the teams that are actually administering home visits. We have had those issues and we've dealt with them. But when it comes to the shortage of ballot papers, there isn't even one report that reflected that there is such.
Why was the double envelope system not used? I mean, is that a show that there was no training prior to it? That's why the officers weren't aware?
It is a good question, Mpho, because what we did, we actually phoned various stations to ascertain whether this is a general problem in Nelson Mandela, and we found out that it's just 4 voting stations that are affected. And for that to have only 4 voting stations in a municipality where there is over 200 stations, it does indicate that it cannot be a training issue. But it's 4 presiding officers that are not necessarily serious maybe with the work that we are doing, in so much that we had no option but to release those presiding officers so that they do not make any more mistakes going forward.
How will the mistakes cost the overall tally of the day when it comes to the number of people who may have voted? Is it going to be deemed as votes that will not be counted in? What will happen to them?
Not at all. What happened in the stations, there was a meeting that was held with the party agents that were present in those voting stations, and it was agreed that those ballot papers will be corrected. And then on the day of the elections on Wednesday, the ballot box will be brought back to the station and they will be counted with the rest of the ballots.
With the protest taking place, how has this affected the number of people that you were expecting today?
We have not done the collation as to how many people have voted today. Unfortunately, we're busy working with that. But of course, it has done a disruption. Looking at Port St. John's, for example, to have 81 stations out of 134 not opened, that is a huge number. Even KSD, the 302, that is a huge number. And in Nyandeni, with that 7, we don't know whether the people around the 7 voting districts, they were actually affected and they did not feel safe. But we are appealing to the SAPS to really make sure that there is visibility in these areas, there's clearance of the roads, and we do not wake up to what we experienced this morning where there was blockage, especially in Umtata and Nyandeni areas.
And very lastly, when it comes to some of the processes and systems involved, perhaps give us an idea on how exactly special votes are cast, more so with the questions around whether or not, it is a secret vote as one would cast on the 29th of May.
It is definitely a secret ballot. That is why even on the the 4 reports that we received from Nelson Mandela, we had to make sure that the secrecy of the ballot is indeed safeguarded. When you do a double envelope voting, you are issued with your 3 ballot papers or 2 ballot papers, depending where 1 ballot paper depending where you are voting. If you are voting within your province, it's actually 3 ballots. If you are outside your province, it's 1 ballot. When you get to the envelope, you are issued with 2 envelopes, and you take your envelope, your 3 ballots, you insert them on a smaller envelope that is not marked, and then you put them on a bigger envelope that has your details, and then you deposit your ballots into the ballot box. On the day of voting, at the end of the day on voting, when it's time for counting, we will then be able to scratch the names, to verify the names against the SV that is written for all those people that have voted today, tomorrow, indicating a special vote voters. So when it comes to the time of voting, of counting, we then take out the bigger envelope and we leave the smaller envelope that does not indicate whose vote it is. And then we add it to the rest of the ballots that have been issued on that day. And there is no that one can know that small envelope who it does it belong to. That is why the double envelope system is important. But with what happened now with the 4 stations where these ballots were deposited straight to the ballot box, still they do not have a name. So on the day that we are counting, that is on Wednesday at the end of business, when we're doing counting, that ballot box will be opened in front of party agents and it will be mixed with the rest of the ballots and counted with the rest of the ballots. So no one can ever say, even in that instance where the double envelope system has not been used, can say that he actually knows who has voted for what. So the system works whether the 2 envelopes have not been used, because we are able, when reports come, we are able to actually give a directive as to what should happen to those ballots, and they should be kept safe, and we are able to make sure that they are indeed counted, of course, with the party agents knowing what is happening throughout the process.
Very well. Thank you so much for clearing that part. Kayakazi Magudumana, IEC Provincial Electoral Officer in the Eastern Cape, just talking to some of the challenges that were encountered today as special votes took place.